Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we have missing Keith Reinhard he went missing from Colorado, Silver Plume, Colorado in 1988. And this one's interesting. He was 49 years old, 6'2", 210 pounds. There's some photos of him. It said he was wearing a t-shirt, dark red and black plaid flannel shirt, blue jeans, and old sneakers. 49 years old. He was born in 1938, September 10th. Caucasian male, gray hair, blue eyes. It says that he closed his antique shop for the day and decided to climb to the summit of Pendleton Mountain, but he's afraid of heights. They said it was a 6-hour hike over strenuous terrain with no path, loose rock, and heavy vegetation. This one said he'd climbed the mountain before, but never alone and never as far as the top. And I read he was afraid of heights. He left on his hike at 4:30 p.m. He wasn't carrying any supplies with him, except perhaps a single can of soda. So he had no water or anything. His friends thought his plan to reach the summit and return home that same day was unrealistic. I don't even know if they believed he was going because he was afraid of heights. He wasn't in peak physical condition and he had a hangover from partying the night before, right? But he never came back. And the next day they went searching for him and they searched for a week. It had trained dogs, helicopters, over 100 people. Turned up no sign of him. One of the searchers crashed his plane during the efforts and was killed. He had taken a 3-month leave of absence from his job at the Daily Herald newspaper in Chicago, Illinois, where he was a sports writer. Illinois, I don't know. Where he was a sports writer, and he'd gone to Colorado to climb mountains and write a novel. And he had an antique shop. He left his wife and 2 children behind. He bought a computer to write on and opened an antique shop in Silver Plume during his leave of absence. He hoped to possibly relocate to the area permanently if his shop was a success, and he remained optimistic, although the business wasn't making much money. In 1987, the antique shop had been a bookstore run by Tom Young. So the antique shop was a bookstore before, run by Tom Young, and Young and his dog disappeared September 7th, 1987. 10 months later, their bodies were found in the mountains outside of town. Both Young and the dog had been shot in the head. A revolver was found at the scene, and they ruled it as suicide. I don't think somebody's going to shoot their dog when they commit suicide. Reinhard was interested in Young's disappearance and death, and he decided to write a novel on the case and base his novel on the case. And then he moved into the same building to open the antique shop, and poof, he disappeared. There was speculation that Reinhard and Young's cases were related and that both of them were murdered. But authorities couldn't find any evidence because they couldn't even find his body, or they couldn't even find any sign of him. Police read Reinhard's fiction writings and developed the film and both his cameras looking for clues, but they found nothing of interest. His family never believed he left of his own accord. They stated he was happy with his life and kept in regular touch with his loved ones. His wife had been planning to visit him later in August, and he was looking forward to her arrival. Although many rumors have circulated about his disappearance, no evidence has surfaced to support any of them. I wonder why he went to climb it and what he went looking for. I wonder if he took his camera with him. And then what happened to him? Did he really go to climb it? I mean, here's the name. It said he was 6 foot to 6'2". And it says he was of Algonquin, Illinois. Daily Herald sports writer for 22 years with a passion for covering high school sports. Disappeared in Colorado August 7, 1988. Taking a 90-day leave of absence to work, write, reflect, and regenerate in the Colorado town of Silver Plume. Population was only 140 people lived there. 70 miles west of Denver. During the summer, he lived in a small apartment in the back of an abandoned Catholic church and rented a tiny shop where he sold matted photographs. He also worked on a novel he was writing. Friends described him as a free spirit and said his interest in photography and in panning for gold in Colorado rivers took him west. He went to Colorado alone, leaving his wife of 3 years at home. Around 5 o'clock on August 7th, he announced he was heading into the mountains for a brief hike. So this is for a brief hike, not like he was going to try to climb the summit at night. For a brief hike in the area of South Interstate 70. He said he was going to hike to the top. Oh, I guess he did. He said he was going to hike. That's not a brief hike, is it? Of Pendleton Mountain. Is that a brief hike? He failed to return at 10 o'clock as scheduled. A day later, when he hadn't returned, they began a massive search for him. The official search for him was called off August 14th. After hundreds of searchers, one of them killed when a small plane crashed in the rocky terrain, logged more than 10,000 man-hours without finding a single clue. I wonder if he found a cave and fell into it. I wonder if he went to take like the perfect picture and fell and slipped, or if something happened to him, like an animal got him, or if that other guy was murdered and whoever murdered that other guy murdered him. But you never know, because you could go to take that perfect photo and just think, oh, it's not slippery, and then find out it is slippery, especially if it's wet. Gray or partially gray hair, and even if it's not wet. Blue eyes, some places are slippery. Casual clothes, gym shoes. And if he's not used to hiking, if there's water there and there's rocks in the water, I know people that have tried to walk on the rocks in the water and they don't realize that it's all covered with slippery moss and you're just going to fall. So I don't know what happened to him, but I imagine he could have just went to take the perfect picture and just slipped and fell. Wow, I don't know. It's interesting though, isn't it? So, and here's a John Doe. Because he went missing in Silver Plume, Colorado, which is in Clear Creek County, there was a John Doe found, estimated age 35 to 45, August 24th, 2007. This is years later, right? Like 20 years later almost. And it was just a skull that was found. Human skull was found off mile marker 18.5, Highway 103 in rural Clear Creek County, Colorado. Just a skull. So I wondered if that could be his skull, because it's the same county he went missing from, right? And the age is 35 to 45, and he was 49. It's pretty close. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Here's the CBI page. Probably has the same information. This says 50-year-old. Close enough, right? Of Algonquin, Illinois, was a Daily Herald sports writer for 22 years. Passion for high school sports, taking a 90-day leave. Reflect, regenerate, Colorado, 70 miles west of Denver. Disappeared, lived in a small apartment in the back of an abandoned Catholic church and rented a tiny shop where he sold matted photographs. Worked on a novel. free spirit, interest in photography, painting for gold. Painting for gold, he could have stepped on a rock and slipped. I don't know. Could have been leaning over somewhere. I don't know. Around 5 p.m., he announced he was headed into the mountains for a brief hike. Last seen wearing casual clothing and gym shoes, so that he was going to hike to the top of Pendleton Mountain. Afraid of heights. Massive ground and air search, small plane crash. Not a single clue was found. So, yeah. And then this is called The Dark Side of the Mountain. And you can see it darksidedoc.com, a documentary film from the director of My Amityville Horror. That's a pretty zoomed in photograph. In Silver Plume, Colorado, journalist Keith Reinhard vanished while writing a novel about another man's disappearance. 3 decades later, sinister questions about what actually happened have given rise to a story of legend in Silver Plume, a town haunted by a century-old pattern of tragedy and death. And you can read this and pause it if you want to. It's got some pretty pictures. It says it's an old mining town. Silver Plume, Colorado is known as the living ghost town. Since the 1890s silver crash, its population has plummeted to a mere 130 people. Melting pot of transplants from around the country. Teachers, artisans, builders. The town, just on the blink of an eye along the interstate west of Denver, has an eerie, windswept vacantness. Steep canyon walls sandwiched with a valley. So it looks like it would be dangerous and something could happen to you if you were hiking. So it receives as little as 2.5 hours of direct sunlight a day in the winter. The South doesn't see the sun at all for about 6 weeks a year. What? Haunted by a century-old pattern of bizarre, mysterious deaths. It says, a granite shrine looming on a cliff town series. Clifford Griffin, superintendent of the 730 mine, died by a bullet to the head in 1887. Over 100 years later, people continue to argue whether he committed suicide or was murdered. Wow, then we have Tom Young, who they said was a suicide. But I don't know. Seems like he might have been murdered. A high school teacher who moved there lived alone with his dog on the south side of Pendleton Mountain, caught in perpetual shadow, vanished without a trace, never seen alive again. 11 months later, hunters found him, a bullet wound to the head, a gun found on the scene, along with pieces of shredded green tarp, suggesting that the bodies had been purposely concealed. So why would somebody purposely conceal them if it was a suicide? But then it was ruled a suicide. A green tarp, maybe somebody thought, oh, they won't notice it because the tarp is green. 1988, Keith Reinhard started writing about the disappearance of Tom Young. I guess he was interested in it while he was there, and he was trying to relax. And it's a small town with hardly any people. You know, that's a good place to relax. Fear of heights, leaving about 5 p.m., far too late in the day to begin a difficult 6-hour hike. And he never hiked it by himself. And then he disappeared. The final paragraphs in the story read like a description of his own disappearance, fueling speculation that Keith had staged his own disappearance. Was there a connection between the two disappearances? Wow. Was he murdered? Did he commit suicide? You know, and I'm wondering if he didn't just meet with an accident. Here's the case timeline where you can go through it. And that's pretty interesting. And there's some photos of him. It just looks like a dangerous place to be. It just looks like you could stand at the wrong place to take a photo and have an accident. I'm telling you. Case files. Wow, you can click on these and read them. That's interesting, right? That's interesting. I kind of want to see the case files. Whoops. I didn't know they had case files. I'm going to open these. I love all the photos. The film. Now, for the first time ever, the definitive story is told by people who lived it. Dark Side of the Mountains production team has worked. I would like to see that. Keith Richards' letters, notes, and manuscript. The film paints a vivid reconstruction of Keith's unfinished novel in his own words, writings that have been lost for over 3 decades. Weaving together a unique blend of cinematic interviews, haunting reconstructions, and never before. I wonder if he found something out. I wonder if he knew something. It's interesting, isn't it? Meet the team. Wow. Yeah, now I want to see the film. I am intrigued. And I'm sure that he was intrigued with what happened to the other gentleman, and that's... Whoa. Okay. Incident report. Oh. Keith Reinhard. So, I'm just going to put this up here so that it's here. Tom Young's body was found. This brings us to the investigation phase of this search. Prior to Keith Reinhard, Tom Young had occupied the shop next to KPS Cafe. Tom Young disappeared in early September 1987. Over 1 week prior to Reinhardt's disappearance, Tom Young's body. 1 week prior to Reinhardt's disappearance, Tom Young's body was discovered by elm hunters. Death was ruled a suicide. 1 week before he disappeared is when they found the body. That's interesting. So, 2 problems during this visit, though. The shop that Reinhard set up made very little money, and he was starting to realize that moving might not work out. On the day of his disappearance, Keith was I don't know what he's saying, was to hike up Pendleton Mountain. It was a 2.5 miles to the tower. Climb being very physical with no path, loose rocks, and heavy vegetation. Parker and Reinhard had climbed it before, with Reinhard falling short of the top. Keith was found hanging onto a tree. Not being a physical person, he decided the steep hill with great difficulty. Reinhard was last seen in a t-shirt, red and black and white. Wow, it's very interesting. So I'm going to put these on here in case someone can see them and wants to read them, or you can go to that webpage and see them. Reinhardt had a hangover from the party. The party had been organized by some people from Denver and had taken place at the hall above KP's and drifted over to Reinhardt's apartment behind the church next door. Later versions of Reinhardt's participation in the party had him evaluated as seemed sober to definitely drunk, and as having circulated freely, not talking at length to any one person. So there's a lot of pages here, and I'm not going to read them all. But I did want to make sure that I had them here in case somebody wanted to pause them and read them. And I'm going to go back through them one more time. That way, because one of them I think I clicked on it too. I wasn't on it for long enough. So I just wanted to try to count for a few seconds and try to get each page on there. I can't believe that other person's body was found just a week before he went missing. Here he is writing a book about it, and they found the body a week before, and then suddenly he goes missing. During the early stages of the search, residents remarked how Keith had asked them to go hiking with him on August 7th, 18. One was Larry Doherty's 35 Cherokee Silver Plume, who had seen Keith. At noon, Keith wanted to take a hike, go the trail north, but Doherty declined. Keith had apparently suggested hikes to the north and south of town. His information was passed on to the Alpine Rescue Team. I wonder if he was looking for something. Film can, which contains a small quantity of pot. When asked about, remember when those that was a thing back in the day, back in the 80s, those little black little film things, people used to store their weed in it. When asked about Keith's usage of pot, his friends became very defensive. This brings up point 3. Reinhard obviously has a lot of friends. In the early stage, it was difficult for these people to open up and tell me anything negative about Keith. Wow. You forget things like that, but yeah, if you're old, back in the day, people used to store their weed in those little camera things that held the film. They're little black, short, round. They're like the size of a pill bottle, kinda, but they were black, and the cap is just, you just lift the cap off, and then you just push it down on there. And they fit really good, but they just pop, you can just pop them right up. But yeah, this is interesting. This is some interesting reading. I might do this again. Several rows of Reinhardt's film didn't provide any clues. Pictures of a second mystery woman turned out to be his daughter, whom he had visits in California a month before. Other pictures showed a variety of subjects without any focus on any particular place. Family and friends called everyone they knew, but no one had seen Keith. And there's the last page. Investigation to continue. And then there's this website, says the mysterious disappearance of Keith Reinhard, with some pictures, and talks about that as well. So, I feel like I've done this before, but I'm not sure. Maybe I did. But even if I did, I think I'm going to do this video and name it number 2. But I'm going to check and see if I've done this before. Maybe I was just reading about it. But it's really interesting. If you have any information, please contact authorities, even if you gave it to them years ago, and make sure they have it. Even if it's hearsay and it's something you heard through the grapevine, contact authorities and let them know. It's not like you're going to testify in a court of law. Feel free to leave comments. Don't forget to pray for his family and his loved ones who haven't had closure, and they don't even have his skeletal remains to be able to scatter his ashes or anything. And feel free to leave comments, like I said, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.